The prehistoric age refers to the time of human activity that predates written history. It begins with the first appearance of the Homo genus, the Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and Homo sapiens, some 5 million years ago within the Paleolithic age, through to the Neolithic age, and finally ending with the invention of writing sometime 6,000 years ago during the Metal Age, as shown by this timeline. However, we would only be discussing the breakthroughs in technology and innovation from the Paleolithic age to the early Neolithic age. To be more precise, we would only be discussing the breakthroughs in technology that directly affected the societies and lives of our ancestors, those that were integral in the leap of evolution. To start off, let's talk about one and the first of the biggest breakthroughs in human history, the control of fire. The discovery and control of fire was around 400,000 to 1.6 million years ago. It opened up great possibilities for the early humans, giving them luxuries such as a source of warmth and light. Fire also benefited them through nutrition, as they began to cook meat, getting rid of the bacteria and viruses living in raw flesh. But of course, the early humans did not think of this. They simply liked cooked meat over raw ones because they smelled and tasted better. Though at first humans did not know how to start a fire, they were able to make use of pre-existing fires from the forests when trees burned due to thunder strikes. The control of this valuable element was a turning point in history. This allowed them to adapt to different conditions, especially in the cold of the night, as the method of starting a fire could be done anywhere given the right materials. Now let's talk about another integral part of human evolution, language. The development of language is one of the most important feats of the prehistoric age. Why? Well, it's because the development of language actually parallels the advancement and evolution of the human brain function. What makes our language so advanced and separate from other species is that we have a complex syntax and grammar. Specific rules and structures make for different ways of relaying and interpreting information. According to linguists, the first language in which all other languages stem from is the Proto-Afro-Asiatic language, which persisted for 18,000 years. The development of this language has created a lot of implications in the society of early humans. First, because of language, they were able to impart knowledge to each other, which helped them improve their technologies. Second, it also paved way for a more sophisticated society and societal structures, which we still see today. It enabled for a more interconnected and interpersonal society, with the members being able to communicate their thoughts to the rest of the group, agreeing or disagreeing on where to stay for the night, or having consensus on where to head to in the morning. Aside from consensus, the early humans also devised ways of maximizing their manpower to make for a more efficient and productive group, benefiting them also. This led to the division of labor among the members. The members were stratified according to responsibilities, leading them to a more structured society. The earliest of which would be the hunter-gatherer society, which stratified men and women to hunting and gathering, respectively. As time went on, the hunter-gatherer societies found their nomadic methods to be inefficient, as there was heavy uncertainty of the amount of resources that they would gather, or the animals they could hunt. Instead, they started to devise of better ways to stabilize, which led to the discovery of domestication of animals. This is the pastoral society, which jumps forward in the timeline some 10,000 years ago. Later on, humans have learned to plant seeds and grow them on soil, making for a more efficient source of food on a permanent area, hence the end of the nomadic lifestyle. These societies were known as agrarian or agricultural societies. They're stable in a way that it promotes population growth over an area where the society could settle, as they would have a permanent source of food without having to rely on gathering. This then resulted to different roles in society. Instead of hunting and gathering, the early humans opened roles for farming and pasturing. As the society develops, so does the division of labor. And as labor goes, Humans' ingenuity led to devising ways to ease labor for faster and better yield. This is where tools come in. Tools from this age were made of stone through a process called knapping, and were used for a variety of purposes. Chipped stones were tools made from flint and chert, which is also a kind of stone. They are usually tied to a stick or pole using vines and were used for hunting animals or fending off other tribes. Ground stone tools, on the other hand, are made of basalt, granite, and other coarse stones. They are mostly commonly found on the hand axes of early humans. Speaking of hand axes, the earliest one is called the Oldo one, which was used by the Homo habilis 2.5 million years ago. It's a stone with its flakes removed to create sharp edges, and was used to butcher animals and cut plants. The most common hand axe, however, is the Acheulean hand axe, which was used by the Homo erectus, which was used for skinning animals, cutting wood, and digging through soil. Aside from these, the early humans also developed tools for acquiring animal flesh. The first one is called the atalt. It's a sophisticated hunting tool formed from a short dart with a point socketed in a longer shaft. It's like a spear, but with a holder. The second one is similar, but instead of being thrown, it uses a string to propel the arrow, the bow and arrow, which was developed some 70,000 years ago for hunting. The third one are fishhooks, which archaeologists deemed to have been invented around 42,000 years ago. They were usually found along with the bones of open sea creatures, an indication that the early humans built boats and rafts to travel far the shore to catch fish. Fishing skills also meant that the early humans have started traveling to other shores because they can now survive in the open sea. Aside from that, they have also created net fishes and net sinkers for inshore fishing. Preservation of food was also an issue to the early humans, as they found out that uncooked flesh rot, and even when cooked would still be inedible. So the early humans made use of pottery to maximize their resources some 20,000 years ago, when the glaciers were large and the climate was an extreme. They had two purposes for using pots. One is for storage, and the other one's for cooking food. However, as time went on, pots have taken other additional purposes, such as extracting nutrients from bones, leaves, and flesh, and of course, fermenting alcohol, which wasn't until around 7000 BC, which is not in the scope of this video. Finally, let's talk about our everyday garments, clothing. By studying the evolutionary path of lice, paleontologists were able to assert that clothing originated way back 170,000 years ago with the Neanderthals. The Neanderthals, a separate species of humans that went extinct, originated in the European regions. They have created simple clothing made of animal fur and plants to combat the cold, which was then adapted by our very own species of humans who resided in the humid Africa and developed them to be better suited for them. Clothes served as protection from external elements and weather extremes. Besides practicality though, humans have found on other purposes for clothing. Archaeologists found out that the early humans used clothing for rituals and burials. Across time though, the use of clothing took on a more cultural stance aside from its practicality. In conclusion, prehistoric technology began from usage of simple tools for simple purposes, such as hunting for food and protection, until eventually our ancestors were able to devise more efficient ways and technologies to make their lives easier, such as through fire, tools, cooking, food storage, clothing, agriculture, and pasturing. These innovations led to a sedentary lifestyle from hunter-gatherer one, ultimately reflective of the ingenuity of the most innovative species to have ever set foot on planet Earth.